Welcome to the final edition of the Civ Battle Royale.
My name is Dawkinzz, and let's get right into it. You've been waiting long enough for this, so here we are. Hello, and welcome to the action. Rion Monteris here, computer watcher and part poster for the CBR. Let's jump right in, shall we? Here we see Brazilian troops advancing on Pori. How long will the battalion of loyal Sabir biotroopers last against the onslaught of Brazilian robot infantry? I'm confident we will soon see. Here we see one front where Sabir seems to hold a distinct advantage over Brazil. Still bitter over the loss of their capital, the Siberian air wing pounds the newly captured cities of Dila, Iskar, and Tiamen into a fine paste to keep Brazil from gaining any benefit. They also flood forth both biotroopers and robot infantry, pushing to try to reclaim some land before the inevitable second wave of Brazilian troops arrive. On this front, Brazil is again at an advantage. Surprise, surprise. Surrounding Otrar and moving in on Beshbalik and Karakorum. How soon will Pedro be able to add another capital to his list? Only time will tell, but it is interesting that these cities have not taken much damage. Perhaps Pedro's air force is busy elsewhere. The captured Brazilian pocket containing Canoe and Tiflis seems to be holding, but only just. While this area is no stranger to war, with these cities having been beaten down and rebuilt several times at this point, I'll also take a moment to note here the recent annexations of these cities by Sabir. It looks like they are pressing any and all production they can find to supplant their troops. Now we turn to the frigid north, where the final Inuit stronghold stands, their backs to the famous ice sheet fleet, or what remains of it. Fighting with whatever units they can find, including some outdated artillery they must have dragged out of a museum. Here we can see some influence of big carrier, with 4 empty carriers sitting in the middle of the fleet. The current Inuit capital of, couldn't go apart without me butchering a name, Akvilik sits at half health with a Brazilian robot infantry standing on the doorstep. Is old Nick here still, or has he already left for the far north reaches? The last Inuit Pacific holdings look a bit worse for wear, with a pile of embarked Brazilian units inbound. Brazil's ability to mostly avoid dealing with big carrier has certainly proved to be a boon in this fight, as we can see a carrier-free navy here on this slide. Over to Korean lands, we see a Brazilian fleet of advanced destroyers lurking off the coast, while biotroopers and robot infantry roll in from the north. Hiroshima, or Hiroshima if you fancy, never rebuilt much from being the first city nuked, stands on the coast waiting for the inevitable green tide to roll in. Moving south to the former Korean heartland, we see that Sejong has moved his capital into his former friend's home in Osaka. A beautiful and large city at size 34, one can only hope that Brazil does not destroy too much as they roll in. Here we see the final stand of the Trung sisters. They have moved their capital to Tanhuao and stationed their last troops outside. I'm sure the sisters stand tall in the city square, firing off orders and preparing the city for the hell they know is only a short time away. Sliding out to the Pacific, we can see the relative peacefulness of the northern Hawaiian possessions, now under the rule of Henry Parks. While a lone advanced destroyer threatens Melalani Maoka, the city has plenty of health to handle the single ship attacking it. For now, at least. It is just the beginning. Looking at the Philippines now, we see Brazil is only slowly advancing on this front. They seem more interested in dealing with the Vietnamese in their backfield than pushing here for the moment, but I'm sure the time will come when these cities will fall. Just a little peek at the Aussie mainland here, and we can see the true devastation of this war with unclaimed tiles between the two, signifying the borders of what was once a city. No idea who destroyed this particular city, but I am confident it will not be the last. Down in the Antarctic, 2 cities stare at each other across the ice and nuclear winter. It seems too cold to do anything down here, as these cities aren't really even damaged and there is no air force down here on either side. Out to the Hawaiian Islands proper and their former capital of Honolulu, we see only a smattering presence of either side's units. This being so close to the Brazilian homeland, you might expect a bigger force here, but Pedro seems to want to keep his forces close to home in the Pacific. Verhaturye to Brazil. I think I got that. The Siberian units nearby are not enough to keep the Brazilians from seizing the city, but will they hold it? Or do we have another flipper on our hands? Pori, previously mentioned, also falls in the north. Back to Korea, we see that Ulsan is now showing a sporting green color, and Osaka is now down to half health and has several units moving in. It seems Brazil is interested in bringing its fellow vanilla civ into the fold first amongst the remaining combatants. Than Hoa, Phong Chau, and Saigon all fall for Vietnam. In the race to who is out first this part, it certainly seems like Vietnam is winning, quote-unquote. Surrounded by units and with one city at low health, it would not surprise me if they fell first. The two beautifully named Inuit islands of Sikapasamaik and along with the short-lived capital of Akvilakaka. It just rolls off the tongue. The Inuit capital moves much farther away from the line now to Sadakaraka, hopefully to hold out as long as possible. In Central Asia, we see that Tiflis has flipped back to Siberian control. Although likely not long-lived, this is a bit of an upset for Kuchum Khan, who up until now had been ceding land on every front. Does this mean the Grey Wall has stopped the Green Wave? We shall see. And Vietnam is the first to fall! Coming in 6th is no small feat for the Trung sisters, who seemed both brilliant and incompetent at the same time in this game. Several times, it seemed, the Trungs were either rolling momentum in their favor or building useless units and fighting a pointless meat grinder of a war with Sabir. There is a eulogy slide later for them, so I won't drag this on much here, but to say that Vietnam earned its spot at number 6 admirably. F. Zamboanga looks poised to fall as yet another Brazilian fleet surrounds it. Also to note, there are 3 carriers in this slide and all 3 have airplanes on board. Brazil knowing how to use a navy is certainly helping them with these island-hopping invasions. In a surprise twist, Honolulu falls. I was not expecting to see this for some time considering the apathy Brazil had shown in the previous turns, but it seems they are now interested in these islands. Add one more capital to Pedro's roster. And Rion Monteros' last slide is looking at the boring stretch of Pacific Sea between Coffs Harbor and Bundaberg. I have to say that destroyed Hawaii tile improvement looks pretty cool. And that is it for me. Thank you for watching so far, not just this part, but the whole thing up to now. Without you, this wouldn't be possible, and it certainly wouldn't be as fun. Now I'll pass you off to the next narrator. Hello there, citizens. It is I, Limerick Archer, the royal statistician, album color and adorer of a certain delicious green citrus. I will be your guide through the next few turns of action. Let's get to it. Brazilian troops push into Verkhortje. I pronounced it great earlier, I think. But they don't seem to have much of an advantage as far as numbers of troop makeup goes against Sabir. Good thing there are waves of Brazilian troops in the backlines to slowly beat their way forward. Notably, Sabir has dozens of planes on the front line, keeping every Brazilian city on the screen in the red, but a lack of troops makes their work fruitless. Brazil picks up another capital by storming the gates of Karakoram. The anguished cries of Genghis Khan can be heard echoing through the sub as his former citizens fall subject to yet another ruler and can't stop dancing. More ex-Mongolian territory is taken as well, connecting Konu to the rest of Brazil's territory. Beshbalik crumbles. Midbaffin falls as Brazil directly crosses the Bering Strait for the first time all game. Of interest is that Midbaffin actually loses population here, indicating Brazil isn't yet at dominant influence over every civ yet. How ironic for this culture-based civ. In the north, Inuit cybersubs lurk, waiting. Brazil has nearly completed their takeover of Hawaii with their capture of Waikiki and Hilo. Australia seems to have more or less abandoned these massive island cities, preferring to retreat to the mainland and leave them to get swept by a small contingent of Brazilian Navy. Like any Dagwood sandwich, does anyone get that reference? I certainly do because I read a lot of Garfield comics. Korea was once a towering stack of diverse ham, roast beef, lettuce, onion, pickle, and a sesame seed bun. I mean, those beautifully advanced Korean cities boasting many a world wonder and gold-leafed pillar. Anyways, they're now being crushed so they can fit in the widening maw of Pedro. Tasty. I didn't know Pedro was a blondie. A lone Brazilian robot infantry captures Batam. There's not much action on this front at the moment. Neither civ seems particularly interested in jumping the gap and fighting on mainland Australia quite yet. Also, remember how I assumed Australia was keeping their troops on the mainland rather than on those islands? It appears I'm just wrong and Australia barely has any troops. Sad. Up in the frigid north, Brazil captures 3 cities, Surgut, Mosul, and Lati from Sibir. A couple appear tenuous as they're surrounded by Siberian troops, but I doubt I'm willing to bet Brazilian reinforcements will be here soon enough. On the other side of the world, Pedro cheats and eats the middle of the sandwich first, chowing down on Gangneung and Hiroshima. I'm not sure Sejong will last more than another turn. Brazil presses forward and takes Sanchu. Pedro has set foot on mainland Australia. You know what that means. Time for green to get a little bit more lime. With the capture of Kalamburu, the conquest of Australia has begun, albeit with a bit of a sputter since neither side has committed any substantial force yet. So this is where it ends for Sejong, stuck in his very last city while Brazilian troops bear down from all angles. With the fall of Wonju and Kanazawa, and troops fleeing left and right like a good aioli drips out of a sandwich, Pedro's stomach grumbles. At least Sejong still has a great engineer left to build him a beautiful tomb. Brazil completes their Hawaiian campaign with the capture of Kahului, Aloha, although it looks like Australia did put up a valiant effort by flipping Hilo once before Brazil retook it. This brings up a considerable advantage for Brazil in that because they were so lowly ranked when the reboot happened, they go considerably later in the turn order than almost all of the civs left beginning many parts ago. I wonder if anything would have been different if they'd gone first. Ah, yes. So this is why Pedro doesn't appear to have a large army marching on Australia. Because XComs are a thing, so they just paradrop in from across the world and take cities. Like Rubibi. Just like that. Uh-oh. The world's largest city has come under attack from 2 Brazilian cyber subs. While not much of a threat on their own, the nuclear missiles on board certainly are. And so ends the reign of Sejong. A middling turtle throughout most of the game, Korea have been ranked as low as 61st in Part 3 and as high as 3rd, Part 78, highlighting just how divisive their abilities seemed. Anyways, since I'm terrible at writing eulogies, I will stop talking, and hopefully someone can do a better job than I. F. In other news, the Inuit are crumbling. Since we last saw them, Brazil now has a dominating foothold in Russia and is slowly forcing the Inuit into the ocean. Judging by the number of Brazilian melee units and the lack of any Inuit units at all that could be of any use, the Inuit will also fall in a matter of turns. As we get our first look in a long time at southwestern Australia, it's immediately obvious Brazil has captured both Windjana and nuked Mwanjum, a couple of times in fact. Also, Brazilian XComs have arrived to take a hike up Uluru. Why didn't they just drop onto the top? Are they bad at jumping into the right place? I thought XComs were pros. Exposed? Maybe they just wanted to go for a hike. Anyways, this is Limerick Archer signing off for now. Thanks to you, the community, so much for an amazing Mark 2.1 and supporting us throughout the entire development process. I began working on this project almost 2 years ago, and I can say with confidence, I'm proud to be a Babylonian. Before I leave you in the capable hands of Coyote/Volpe, one technical note on the upcoming slides. Turn 358 was skipped because nothing happened. What a waste of a week for Rion's computer. That's right, a week for the turn to process. Doesn't that suck? Anyway, here comes Coyote Volpe. Recent guacomancer and resetter of broken web caches here, let us continue to the joys of ever-spreading avocado hue. With Korea now eliminated, all the Brazilian troops in the sector are closing in around the ever-dwindling Sabir defense. Oi Miakan will not last another turn, and there seems little hope for Almerche and Yarmanka to stay gray much longer as well. What remains of the Inuit resistance is now all but over. This melting ice sculpture is a puddle now. On the Pacific front, we find that Kailu Kona has been wiped from existence. Only an odd railroad line stretching the diameter of the island remains. Pedro might not have a navy, but is quite content in solving his problems in novel ways. The aforementioned cities do indeed fall one turn later, and a light new sprinkling of troops make up Sabir's sorties, but there are quite a few more Brazilians ready to stomp them out. Brazil should be taking at least one city from Kuchum Khan a turn from now until his end. Oh, it does seem Pedro mustered a few destroyers to join the fun. Mackay surrenders, and there seems to be hardly anything keeping these tiny islands from all capitulating to these same destroyers. Pedro is truly ever the innovative strategist. Why go on an island-hopping campaign when you can just wipe them clean of all sentient life? Mililani Maka is now all but a memory. Nuclear destruction is not limited to islands against Australia, and the old Kimberley city of Moanjum, host to the Great Mosque of Dijen, vanishes. Left behind is quite unsightly city borders that look reminiscent of a Bido alien from R-Type. I don't know what that means. Ekanik, my old friend, this is where we part. The dreams of turning the world into Hoth are now finally at rest. The winter is over. F. This is bittersweet for me, as they have always been our snow bros to the north. The Blackfoot and the Inuit have always been best friends, and for me, in Mark 1, the Inuit were my favorite, so it is sad to see them finally laid to rest. The ghastly removal of these islands by Brazil puts France's extended Pacific nuclear testing to shame. Tamaki Makaura is no more, and all eyes are on Coffs Harbor's certain color swap next turn. Another one turns to dust, this time Ballarat. Shout out to Melon, whose map I'm heavily referencing to identify all these quiet little island city names. At this rate, a sizable portion of the map will escape being painted in Brazil's color before the end, because they'll be painted a different shade of green, radioactive green. Another nuclear bombing, another strange shape. Once more a video game look-alike, this time it distinctly appears as a more familiar space invader. I was not prepared coming into this narration to witness such atrocity mixed with creativity. Perhaps Mini Pedro has merely just invented a new art form. From referencing the map and previous slides, I cannot tell who is responsible, as Port Macquarie was last seen in Brazilian hands and Quezon was in danger of flipping. Now both are just negative space, now part of Mini Pedro's canvas. Sabir continues to be pushed into the Arctic, and the same familiar grind continues. Of note is Sabir prioritizing the building of 4 new settlers in response to the new pockets of land opening up between them and hordes of samba dancers. Some things never change. Coffs Harbor is now Brazilian, and only a slight drop from 53 population level to 45 due to the cultural pressure. A relatively untroubled exchange to what may still be the most populated city considering the destruction nearby. Brazilian culture is strong even with thousands of kilometers of ocean in every direction. In turn 356, Brazil had just punctured the defenses of the Australian fortress, but now literally coastal-wide beachhead has been established and the Brazilians are rushing into the outback. Uluru is exposed, and a meager Australian garrison is there to greet the invaders. A screen cap of the Andes and a now rare look back to South America. The Imperial Heartland is bursting with troops and seldom a tile lies vacant. This is what hegemonic dominance looks like. Eurasia is nearly all a single color now. The mountains are the only thing containing Brazil from having pushed northwards this turn. I will of course state what may be on many minds looking at this image. Will Sibir's last city be Beriozovo? This time, I think Brazil won't shy away from entering Dawkinzz' fabled Frozen Rap Dungeon. Oh my stars. Uluru now provides its 2 food and 6 faith to Pedro, while both Kachina and Kumunya are not spared. Many Pedro may not have liked the dupe memes, but this is sad to see. Parks tries to appease Pedro and votes with him against enacting one final defiant World Congress vote. I'm afraid it won't do much, unfortunately. In the screen cap, we can see a once again calm and recovering former Boer core. Ulundi, in particular, is doing well for itself. A bit more solidarity here in the voting amongst the remaining competitors against Brazil. No natural heritage sites for Brazil to get more yields from its newly acquired Uluru. More of Kruger's former heartlands on view, and again, a nice little brain check to realize that no, this is not the Boer Reich anymore. Sibir only has the glaciers to its back and no solutions left. A sub does its best to stay hidden under the ice, and this is honestly the best a Sibir citizen can hope for now. Thank you everyone for tuning into my musings, and apologies for the errors the website has thrown out as of late. A shiny new one is coming soon. Thanks, Coyote. We'll see you soon. Now, for someone else. As I, the loyal, totally never late Lunar Needle, take over for this turn of narration, we witness the last catacomb of the late Yakusha. We witness a grand collapse of the Sibir Empire around the horde of Brazilian troops. Kuchum, my man, you need to spend money on melee units as soon as possible if you want to delay the inevitable. People are watching after all. With a turn of the turn time and a week thrown into the dustbins of history, we witness the newest capital of Turinsk and the Beriozovo catacomb under direct assault. It's unlikely that it'll be the last city unless Kuchum makes one last assault and takes the city from its death. As we look south of the equator, we witness the swarm of troops flooding in. It seems Greater Newcastle and Ardeloon is safe due to natural fortresses, but all fortresses will crumble over time. It's a matter of when, not if. In a mic-dropping moment, Beriozovo crumbles, and with the last melee unit, the meme is dead. There is only one hope for humanity, and it lies in the hands of any Turinsk unit to pop out. It's almost over for the Khan. Prepare the key, folks. With a hesitant preparation, the Horde watches as it all crumbles. With satisfaction, nearby digital soldiers broadcast a Brazilian flag over the crumbling city. The city, ravaged by war, loses its name in defiance of the new overlord. It's now finally over for Sibir. You can close your eyes, sweet prince. You had an empire that truly outstretched the world, and your strength would have truly made any Russian proud. You lived a proud life, but alas, sweet prince, you must sleep. For now, his eyes close. For now, he sleeps. Goodbye, Kuchum. Thanks for the ride. F. It's now a battle of the greens, with a powerful lime green wave washing over the faded green and gold of old. Entire parts were dedicated to the battles waged on this continent, and like paint, it covers it all in a beautiful hue. I wonder though, does Brazil think they are liberating them? With cairns crumbling to the offense and Canberra beginning to hear the robotic steps of soldiers on their wake, I would imagine acceptance of their future assimilation into the almighty robotic horde. Brazil has taken over the hypermind and now accepts the goal to assimilate every non-robotic overlord. Those with mere chips in their head get stripped of all their flesh and bone and are rebuilt into a better life form. Natural life given beautiful perfect form. This is the final form of the hypermind, and damn can it dance. The ocean life is a lot less obvious, with many cities never seen the war now witnessing hordes of infantry made out of synthetic metals move to their shore. They believe the world was safe and kind, but as even Ardelun begins to be assimilated, the Australians just wait, clinging onto their antiquated artillery in Wollongong and Townsville. Even Wollongate cannot hold back the menace. Brazil has surpassed the power of even gods and mythical inventions. I wonder if they think that sub is an antiquated technology to be hoisted in a museum. Would Nebuchadnezzar accept such a fate? The fleets move in, only providing token resistance through grotesque border gore. Seriously, this is a PG game, folks. It's unlikely these cities will hold any resistance, as even Brazil moves united on cities destroyed off the map, caked in an orange hellfire. Another dozen cities nuked off the map. It's almost impossible to tell what would happen to the citizens of Sunshine Coast now that an artificial sun destroyed their nearby communities, wiping the floodplains off most of the rivers flowing through Rubibi to Newcastle. In the east, Canberra is barren of Australian units, as Gold Coast and Adelaide are all but doomed. I remember when there was too many World Congress votes to showcase, but now there's only 2 votes that can be passed. Embargo Brazil would have done a huge amount of impact, but there's only 2 left. The Congress cannot save you anymore. You're alone, Henry Parks. The encirclement and isolation of Greater Newcastle and Ardelun. Trade routes abandon the city, parking and Albury. I imagine traders in Albury wonder if it's worth going home, as nowhere is safe. Maybe New Zealand? I don't know. Is that even safe anymore? As Wollongong is forced to submit to the Carnival, nearby towns of Townsville and Albury just await their death. It's too late to send out ships. This'll be your final stop, so take a sip of your wine, traders. Enjoy it while it lasts. Wow, sorry about this. Imagining the society as it crumbles has always been an interest of mine, but let's look at something practical. There's more melee units surrounding Marcel, Hobart, and Royadanga than Australia has. Sunshine Coast seems to be the new jump-off point for the South Australian continent. The core is open and Perth takes the first bit of damage in a very, very long time. Now, is it Marcel or Marseille? I'll never know. As Maori nuclear fallout surrounds Sydney, the nuclear pain begins to ring closer and closer and closer. It's hard to tell if some of that is new. Perhaps the chaos and obliteration is beginning to come too close to home. I remember when recording was made to be 24/7. It wasn't long after it started, but we wondered if we would ever reach the point where whole turns would take weeks. It was a fear thought of when turn times were taking hours, but now with weeks upon weeks, our fears were realized. Bless you, Rion. You've done so much for us. Wollongong? More like Wollongon, am I right? Don't kill me. It's amazing how fast these cities flip, with only a few units dealing with each multi-million population metropolis. Each atoll city becomes swept away in the waves of troops. The Iron Wave washes ashore of Geraldton, and soon many others. Just how long will they last? The troubles of scenario building in a nutshell. Due to how each city functions, each city reacts differently to borders. Some cities they don't think are theirs, and some tiles, despite being right outside the city, are often never used. Upon flipping, they also don't register properly. Thus, why we're witnessing the huge hug that Wanganui is receiving from newly Brazilian Nukahau, which, considering what mainland Australia is experiencing, is an oddly fitting nickname. Parihaku finally flips, meaning that there's only one capital left. With only artillery units left and some bio soldiers, it's all crumbling around you. Is anything safe? Can you survive in one city before the curtain falls? Will you have time? The horde of the Carnival approaches. While I imagine the view on islands closer to the mainland as more somber, I can totally imagine places like Atautahi welcoming the Carnival. Just couldn't let me finish this entire thing without more names. I mean, isn't Carnival basically a non-stop party? Places in the Pacific would have a blast. Just ignore the nuclear weapon fielding drones nearby. What do I even say here anymore? With startling precision, another city falls, yada yada. If I wanted to pull anything from here to talk about, it'd be the insane year the game thinks it's in. Like, seriously, 6121 AD? Also, notice how high population most of the nearby cities are. I wonder if Brazil even noticed the happiness problems anymore. Speaking of unhappy, Australia is falling apart. The fortress is collapsing and even Wanganui Atara finds within its bounds, and even Melbourne is getting the notification to attack. Australia's once fearful trash fleet of diggers and dreams is gone, and now everything is laid bare. Much like the Battle of Iceland and Sweden, the waterways are open for chaos. The problem is the unit is stronger, faster, and more agile than Parks will ever be. This is a game lost a long time ago. We're just waiting for that final flip. The once notable advantage that Parks had is over. Much like the war in the Pacific during World War II, the goal isn't to fight over small islands, but eliminate all ships from the water so you can sail in. And as the last fortresses of Australia fell, there's nothing left. It's all over. Praise Pedro. Sydney is on the verge of collapsing. The walls are weakened and boats find their destination. It's unlikely that Sydney will last a turn. I wonder what it's like in the Australian Parliament. That is, if the constant losses didn't send Henry Parks into hiding. As he sips his rare important Chardonnay and reminisces what happened. Could the clock turn back and a new world be born with Australia at the top and Brazil out of the world? He wishes silently, but God heeds his call. A cup is hoisted over Pedro's head as the final mantle of a defeated enemy is brought to his feet. Although not all is perfect, as some cities remain yet to be subjugated. As we can see, only one melee unit is in this shot. Even moving down to some behind-the-scenes images, we'll find only one cyber sub and a bio soldier coasting alone off the Maori capital. It's truly and finally over. There's no way they can capture it back. Australia, like many others, finds it all crumbling about them. Without a doubt, every city would turn lime green, but seeing as we wanted to release the part this month instead of next month, we opted to halt progress here, caked in nuclear fire. Now, I would have the final say if all else is equal, but I want to hand it off to the leader of Blue Cassette for some special news. Hi, it's Rion again. Welcome to the end of the CBR Mark 2.1. It's been quite the ride these last few years, both watching and working on this project, but it's finally come to a conclusion. We in Blue Cassette have learned a lot running this game for all of you. Lessons we have and will apply to the next iteration, CBRX or Cbrix Season 1. I know you are hoping for news on the release date for Cbrix Season 1, and while I don't have anything to say just yet, I can confidently tell you that the game is currently recording and we should decide on a launch date soon. You can expect not only more of the same style of content as we have had for the CBR Mark 2.1, but we're planning to make even more stuff for you to enjoy. It's been great working for, and with in some cases, this community. It is a great pleasure each week to see the part drop and the discussions and creations commence, and we look forward to that occurring for some time to come. Speaking of part drops, we do have one final thing planned for next week, a bonus part if you will, as a community look back on all of the participants of the CBR Mark 2.1. So stay tuned for that and for more info on the Cbrix. And on a more personal note, my name is Dawkinzz, and this has been the Civ Battle Royale Mark 2.1. We're finally at the end. Brazil has been claimed the champions of it all. And although my Blackfoot didn't win, I'm happier than ever to have been a part of all of this. I want to thank all of you for viewing, and I hope you join us for the Cbrix when it comes around pretty soon, I hope. But until then, my name is Dawkinzz, and we'll see you next time.